Well everyone, it's time for us to go take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S24 and see how this particular phone holds up in the middle part of 2024. Now, this phone came out just a couple of months ago and it's still one of the best phones you can buy. And to be honest, there really hasn't been like crazy amounts of development since this phone has first came out. But I will still tell you it's very interesting to take a look at some of these devices just a few months after. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is the price tag of this phone has kind of started to come down a little bit in the used market. So because people are able to get their hands on these particular devices, you are able to go and see that some of these phones aren't as expensive as they used to be. And I do think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because as you're going through and buying a phone like this is not going to be the most expensive phone of all time anymore. It's going to be a fairly cheap one. And I think that's a really, really important thing to keep in mind. No, it's not the cheapest phone of all time, but for a brand new, phone, it's kind of impressive without a doubt. So first of all, with the Samsung Galaxy S24 on the front, still has an amazing display, one of the best displays you can basically purchase. And I think that's a very cool thing. As you're going through and getting a device like this, you're going to be getting a very, very good quality panel. And I think this is some very, very insane important stuff to keep in mind here. Because if you're going through and buying a phone, you probably want it to have the best quality possible. And this display I could talk about all day. It's a beautiful display, beautiful panel, 120 Hz display, one of the brightest panels you can buy as well. And as I mentioned before, if you're going through and buying a certain device, I love the way this thing looks without a doubt. So definitely without a doubt gets a thumbs up for me. You're still getting USB-C, you're still getting a tremendous feeling phone for the most part. And I will say with the flat sides, it does give the impression that it is actually a much better phone in some ways, than some other type of device, like some plastic backed phones like we had on the S21. So this without a doubt is another very cool thing to keep in mind here too. Now on top of that with the Samsung Galaxy S24, the triple camera setup on the back is still very, very nice, and that's still something I love a lot about these particular phones. You're still getting very, very good capability within this phone for sure. And the Galaxy Eye features that Samsung put out are starting to kind of come out a little bit more with a lot more feature set inside of it too, which is another very cool thing inside of it as well. So without a doubt, I love this phone, and definitely from the exterior gets a thumbs up for me. Now on top of that, another very big thing with the Samsung Galaxy S24, the cameras are also very nice. The camera on this thing has been very solid since it first came out, and it is still a very good camera without a doubt. I feel like if I'm going through and getting a certain device, I like the way this thing looks and feels and holds up. And as I mentioned before, I think that's a very, very important thing. If I'm going through and getting a certain device, like I said before, I definitely want it to be performing at these high levels, and this camera is no exception. 4K 60 on the back, 4K 60 on the front, but also, this is the big thing, also having 8K capability is still very cool, and you're still maintaining that on this particular device too. And from all the phones that I've compared this thing to since then, it's held up extremely, extremely well. And I do think this in and of itself is another super cool thing you have going for it as well. So I look at this phone all the time, and from every way I've kind of held around this phone, I've always loved it, and I still think it holds up so well in all those ways that I kind of hit on. Finally, in terms of the, software updates, it's gotten a couple of things. Again, with my full review I've done of this thing, that's kind of where I hit on most of the things most of the time. But I think with this thing, it still holds up very, very well when it comes down to the whole entire performance side. And when it comes down to the software, it's still getting software updates. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. But I think that performance is kind of that big thing here. I think honestly, when I look at this thing, the performance of this particular device is absolutely killer. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Because as you're going through and getting these types of phones, you're going to start seeing that these types of devices are going to hold up extremely, extremely well in the future. And I think without a doubt, in my personal opinion, the performance of this phone is insanely great. Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chipset, you're getting basically 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM. And instead of a phone like this, that's a really good amount of RAM and a really good amount of performance to have in this type of device. And as I mentioned, I think this in and of itself is another very cool thing that you have going on with this particular device too. So overall, I think the Samsung Galaxy S24 holds up extremely well in 2024, at least in the middle part, and I think it's aged fairly well in the last couple of months. Again, it's not a perfect device by any means, but I think if I'm going to go through and buy one, this is a great time to buy one since they're going down in price quite a bit. So in terms of that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.